What if I told you the average woman in the 1950s stayed lean without Ozempic, without calorie counting, without protein bars, without low-fat foods, and without obsessing over weight loss? And the reason why should make every American furious, because something changed between your grandmother's kitchen and yours, and it wasn't discipline. In 1960, only about 13% of American adults were obese. Today, that number is close to 50%. Yeah, half of the United States population, according to the projections by Harvard. Severe obesity back then was non-existent. Today, nearly 1 in 10 Americans qualifies as severely obese. I used to be one of those individuals. Did human biology suddenly collapse in 2 generations? Did our genetics change so rapidly? Of course not. It was the environment that changed. The food changed. And corporations figured out something terrifying. They could make more money engineering hunger than satisfying it. Helen Merrick lived in the same farmhouse outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania for more than 50 years. And from 1954 until the year she passed away, she kept a kitchen ledger. Every grocery trip, every Sunday dinner, every birthday cake. 51 years of exactly how an ordinary American woman ate, written in her own handwriting. Do you want to know what was on these shopping lists? Butter, eggs, whole milk, bacon, potatoes, heavy cream, coffee, and lard. And then
all right, write this down. Butter, eggs, whole milk, not skim milk, bacon, potatoes, heavy cream, coffee, and lard. What a great shopping list. This is my shopping list. Cool.
51 years, you will not find anything that said low fat, sugar-free, protein bar, meal replacement shake, or even the word diet. Helen weighed almost the same at 65 as she did at 25. Her granddaughter is 36. She buys organic. She tracks macros. She eats low-fat Greek yogurt. She uses an app to track her calories. And she goes to her bar class twice a week. And she weighs more than Helen did at the same age. So what changed? Because it wasn't Ozempic, it wasn't calorie counting, and it definitely wasn't low-fat yogurt. The answer explains almost everything about why losing weight feels so hard today. And once you see it, you genuinely can't unsee it. Most people will tell you the answer is willpower, discipline. That women in the 1950s were just more disciplined. They had stronger minds, stronger habits, a stronger sense of how the body should look. Well, that's a comforting story. That's also a big fat lie. A 36-year-old woman in 2026 has access to more nutrition information in 1 minute than Helen Merrick saw in her entire lifetime. She reads the ingredient labels. She watches gym tutorials before bed. She knows what kale is. She knows what cortisol is. She's tracking everything. So why is she losing a fight her grandmother didn't even know she was in? Because the fight was never about willpower. It was about the environment Helen lived inside, and the environment that was slowly, deliberately, profitably built around her granddaughter. Here's the part that people are afraid to say out loud. In the early 1960s, as I mentioned, about 13% of American adults were classified as obese. In the 1930s, it was less than 1%. Severe obesity in the 1960s, that was less than 1% of the population. Today, it's 1 in 10 Americans. This isn't a generation losing discipline. This is an industry rebuilding the entire environment around eating. It's not a metaphor. This is not theory, or I'm not hypothesizing here. It's a documented chemical, economical, and structural shift. Picture Helen's kitchen at 10:30 in the morning. What's on the counter? Almost nothing. Maybe a bowl of apples, a coffee pot. That's it. A woman in the 1950s ate 3 meals a day. Sometimes a slice of cake at 3 in the afternoon, if she had company. Otherwise, 3 meals a day. And in between those meals, her body did something that almost nobody does anymore. It got hungry. It digested. Then it rested. Her insulin would rise after every meal and then come back down to baseline for hours. Her body was actually allowed to finish processing food before being asked to process more food. Now, look at the modern American kitchen at 10:30 in the morning. A protein bar in the bag, a Starbucks cup in the cup holder, a handful of almonds at the desk, a pumpkin spice oat milk something, a piece of sugar-free gum, 3 dried apricots from a pouch that says healthy snacks for busy moms. You're snacking throughout the day. You're constantly eating. That means your insulin levels never come down, even if it's a healthy snack. Your body never finishes the last thing before it's asked to deal with the next thing. Look, the snack industry didn't solve hunger. It monetized it. Granola bars didn't even exist as a category before the mid-1970s. Today, snacking is a multi-$100 billion business in this country alone. A category that in Helen's lifetime didn't even exist. You see, you were never built to eat consistently. Helen proved it without even trying. But snacking isn't even the biggest metabolic crime committed in the last 70 years. The 1950s breakfast was eggs, sometimes bacon, maybe some toast and butter, black coffee, possibly a piece of fruit. Real food, cooked in fat, on a real plate, even sitting down. That meal kept a person full until lunch, not because of willpower, but because of biology. They just gave their body enough protein and fat to hold them over. See, protein and fat trigger these satiety hormones. They're called cholecystokinin, peptide YY, leptin. These are natural GLP-1 hormones that your stomach, your body produces. They tell your brain, stand down. We have what we need. A few eggs with butter and your hunger signals quiet down for 4 or 5 hours. What replaced it? Cereal, a muffin, a healthy breakfast bar, a flavored yogurt with fruit at the bottom that has more sugar than a Snickers bar, a smoothie with 3 pieces of fruit and a scoop of something marketed as clean. That meal doesn't keep you full. It spikes your blood sugar. Then you crash in 90 minutes. And that crash is the reason why you're starving by 10 a.m., which is why the snack industry exists. The cereal made you hungry, the snack bar saved you, and the same 3 companies own both. You see, breakfast used to keep people full. Now it keeps people coming back. It's kind of a brilliant business model. It's a subscription business model that's got you hooked. But this next one, this is the one that changed everything. I want you to picture 2 kitchens. 1955, American kitchen, butter on the counter, a tin of lard next to the stove, beef tallow in a jar by the back door, maybe a small bottle of olive oil if the family had Italian or Greek roots. Then let's picture this one, 1956, same kitchen, but now we have margarine in a tub, a bright yellow can of Crisco, a plastic jug of Wesson oil, heart healthy spreads with a thumbs up, a stamp of approval from the American Heart Association right on the side of the label. How the heck did that happen? There's one key person to blame here. In the 1950s, a researcher named Ansel Keys published research suggesting that saturated fat caused heart disease. This guy was so inspiring, so convincing. He was working with the United States government, and he hypothesized that the countries that had the highest heart disease were the same countries that ate the most saturated fat and cholesterol. So he looked at 22 countries, and he discovered that his research did not back up his hypothesis. So what did he do? Being a very convincing, ego-driven man, he removed most of the countries from the study and cherry-picked 7 countries. It's called the 7-country study. You go look it up. And with those 7 countries, he showed these countries have the highest rate of heart disease. They consume the most cholesterol and saturated fat. What he didn't share is that the other countries didn't show that, number 1. And number 2, those 7 countries he did show in his data were not eating high-quality, real saturated fat. They were eating fake fats, trans fats, margarine. But it didn't matter. President Eisenhower, US government, the food industry, they locked into Ansel Keys' research. By 1977, the US government issued dietary guidelines telling Americans to eat less fat. By 1980, every food company in the country was racing to make low-fat versions of everything. Here's what they did not tell you. When you take the naturally occurring fat from a whole food, that food now tastes like cardboard. To make it edible again, you have to add something. They added sugar, lots of it. And the American Heart Association literally stamped its endorsement onto sugar-loaded cereals. Do you remember Snackwell's cookies? Fat-free, addictive, and absolutely loaded with sugar and processed corn. Look, in 1909, the average American consumed less than 10 grams of soybean oil per year. By 1999, it was over 11 kilograms per person, a more than 1,000-fold increase. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition called it the single most significant change to the US food supply in the entire 20th century. Today, soybean oil alone makes up roughly 14% of every American's daily calories. And not just the soybean oil, all these rancid, inflammatory seed oils and vegetable oils, they're found in 80% of the entire food supply. These are industrial seed oils that didn't meaningfully exist in Helen's kitchen. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats in the human diet used to sit around 1-to-1. Today, Western diets are closer to 20-to-1, meaning 20 omega-6 fats to 1 omega-3 fat. This imbalance is linked in study after study to chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is the soil that heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease are grown in. We took butter away from women and us guys. We replaced it with industrial oil pressed in chemical solvents, and we called it heart health. Look, the obesity curve from 1980 to today doesn't lie. That's the betrayal. That changed everything. But there is good news. There's always good news. The body didn't stop working. The environment changed. The body did not. Your body is remarkable. The metabolism is adaptive. In other words, God built your body to be self-healing. You are a masterpiece because you're a piece of the master. Once you remove the interference, the inner physician, this innate intelligence that lives within every cell, heals your body. There's nothing external that can replace the healing powers that your cells have right now. But you have to identify the interference, which we just did in this lesson, remove the interference, then your body heals itself. I don't care if you're watching and listening to this and you're 75, 95, or 25, your body will heal itself as long as you remove the interference. So that means there's one obvious starting point. To me, if there's one single thing worth bringing back into your kitchen from 1955, there are a few things: butter, eggs, but I'm going to choose right now as my favorite, real olive oil. Why? Because real olive oil is rich in polyphenols, the same compounds that make the longest lived populations on Earth the longest lived populations on Earth. It's anti-inflammatory. While I love butter and duck fat and ghee and lard and eggs, those are great saturated fats, but it lacks these specific polyphenols that high quality olive oil has. Olive oil triggers satiety in your brain the way that fat used to and is supposed to. You don't even need much of it. But here's the catch. A good percentage of the olive oil being sold at your grocery store right now isn't really olive oil. It possibly has been sitting there for months, maybe even years away from the harvest date. It's exposed to fluorescent lights. Some olive oils are even cut with seed oils like the soybean oil we mentioned earlier, and some of them are in clear plastic bottles. This explains why people say, but Ben, I have olive oil and I don't notice a difference. Well, it's probably not a high polyphenol, high quality olive oil. Once I learned this, I personally stopped buying olive oil from the grocery store. So you need to stop asking, like, what diet should I follow? How many calories should I have? And start asking yourself, what am I actually putting in my body every single day? And honestly, for a lot of people, this is where everything starts changing, because one of the biggest things taken from out of the American kitchen were real healthy fats. We don't want these fake heart-healthy spreads. We don't want margarine. We don't want industrial seed oils. These are frankenfoods. You know, Americans, I should say human beings, are the only species smart enough to create their own food and dumb enough to actually eat it. You want real fat. You want real whole foods, single ingredient foods, the real food that human beings ate for generations before food became a chemistry experiment. And if you feel like you're doing all these things, but you're still struggling with belly fat, cravings, inflammation, brain fog, or energy crashes, there's a very real chance the oils in your kitchen are part of the reason why. So first and foremost, eat those healthy fats I mentioned earlier. Get rid of the Franken foods. Start with 3 meals a day, no snacking in between. And I would recommend getting a high quality olive oil to get those polyphenols, to lower inflammation, to signal to your brain you're full, which will prevent you from snacking in between your meals. Now, when shopping for olive oil, you want to make sure it is in a dark glass bottle. You want to make sure it has a harvest date, it's single origin. And when you look at the harvest date, it's within 18 months of that harvest date. Anything longer, it could start to lose its polyphenol count. I personally am a olive oil snob. The one that I use is from the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club. You may have heard me talk about it before. Now, I've looked at their polyphenol reports. I've seen how they work with small farmers. It's cold pressed. It's first harvest pressed. It's loaded with polyphenols. So I've done my research, and this is what I take. If you trust my research or want to do your research, look into the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club. If not, use some of the suggestions I just gave you for the grocery store. But I've seen for a lot of people, when they've tried this olive oil for the first time, or even like a high quality olive oil, they realize that they never really truly had high quality olive oil before. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like if you have olive oil in your pantry right now, like go grab it now or grab it tonight and do this. Taste it. Take a shot of it. No, I always say, don't tell my wife I do this, but I take a little swig right from the bottle. You want to make sure that's burning my throat. It's super peppery. The peppery burn in the throat from your olive oil is what you want. That means it's loaded with polyphenols. If you did that olive oil taste test with your olive oil and it did not do that, it went down smooth, that's a red flag. That is a problem. Real olive oil should taste alive. Look, I've seen people make the switch to real olive oil and something interesting happens. Cravings calm down. Energy stabilizes. It helps with bloating. They finally feel satisfied after eating, not because of anything that's magical, but because their body is finally recognizing real food again. If you want the olive oil that I use from the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club, I worked out an exclusive deal just for you, my community, to get a free bottle. Yes, when you purchase 2 bottles, you get a 3rd bottle completely free. You can't find this deal anywhere else. Simply click the first link in the description box below. If you're watching on YouTube, grab your phone and scan the QR code on the screen to take advantage of this offer. The thing is, they make small batches. Their harvests are small batch. So once a batch is gone, it's gone. You can't get it. So hopefully you see this on time and take action and the deal's still available. Look, the bottom line is this. It's about whether the food in your kitchen is helping your body heal or quietly keeping you trapped in a cycle that we talked about in this lesson. And if you choose this olive oil and don't notice a huge difference, they give you a full money back guarantee. So there really isn't any risk here. Look, Helen Merrick wasn't exercising. She was doing things in her day-to-day, like carrying laundry baskets up and down stairs, walking to the market, sweeping floors, hanging clothes on the line in the backyard, carrying paper grocery bags home with no driveway, no garbage, and definitely no Amazon delivery. Her great-granddaughter today does what, 8,000 steps a day? She tracks it diligently. Mostly those steps are to the fridge. Look, this isn't blame. This is architecture. We built a world that quietly removed movement from daily life. And then we sold that movement back to people as $40 Pilates classes. Exercise wasn't scheduled in 1955. Movement was simply unavoidable. 1950s women drank water, black coffee, hot tea, maybe even a glass of like A2 milk at dinner. Today's woman starts her day with a 380 calorie oat milk caramel cold brew, has kombucha at lunch, a flavored sparkling water at 3, and a glass of wine with dinner. Liquid calories don't trigger those fullness signals the way solid food does. Your body literally does not register them as a meal, which means you're drinking the equivalent of an extra meal almost every day, and your brain has no idea. Coffee used to wake people up. Now it spikes their blood sugar before 9 in the morning. In 1955, a family dinner was made in the kitchen by a human being from raw ingredients. Vegetables came with dirt on them. Chicken came with bones. The soup had been on the stove for an hour. Today, by some estimates, 60 to 90% of the average American's calories come from ultra-processed food, products so transformed by industrial processing that biochemically, they share more in common with paint than with a tomato. 60 to 90%. Cooking used to protect people from processed food because processed food in 1955 barely existed. Food used to look like food. Breakfast at 7 a.m., lunch at noon, dinner at 6. That predictability did something we didn't fully understand for 50 years. It stabilized circadian rhythm. You see, your liver, your pancreas, your insulin, your hormones, they all run on a clock. Eating at random times all day, 10 times a day, on a schedule with no rhythm, that's the metabolic equivalent of giving your body permanent jet lag. The body thrives on rhythm. Modern eating destroyed this rhythm. Look, bottom line, I already said this, the body didn't change, the environment changed. The food changed, movement disappeared, sugar got cheap, real fat got demonized, industrial seed oils took over, snacking became an identity. The women and men in the 1950s didn't stay lean because they were stronger than you. They stayed lean because their environment was honest. If this video unlocked something for you, if something made you exhale and put your phone down for a second and think about it, I want you to hear me clearly. You aren't lazy. You aren't broken. You aren't lacking discipline. You are just living inside a system that in many cases isn't even legal in some other developed countries. The body is adaptive. The metabolism is resilient. When you remove the interference, the response is sometimes incredibly fast. It starts in small ways. Eat real fat. Eat real food, single ingredient foods. Cook as much as possible. Go for a walk after dinner. Make sure your pantry doesn't read like a chemistry textbook. So you don't need a prescription pill to do what Helen Merrick did instinctively every day of her life without ever writing the word diet in her kitchen ledger. You just needed somebody to tell you what was taken from you. And if this lesson made something click, if you're sitting there thinking, this finally explains it, share this lesson with somebody in your life who is still blaming themselves for something that was done to an entire generation, because maybe the problem was never lack of willpower. Maybe we just forgot how human beings are supposed to eat. And hey, if you enjoyed this lesson, I did an experiment with olive oil. I consumed 30 tablespoons of olive oil in 10 days, and I documented what it did to my body. You're gonna wanna see this. Here's a clip from that recent video. Click the video on the screen coming up here in a few seconds, and I'll see you in that next lesson. I'm gonna walk you through every day. Be good.
Chris, can you come in and read the essay? And fellowship, because I like ships, you know. Warships and worship and fellowship and discipleships. I'm into ships. And anchor, diving gear, exploration. Go where no man has gone before. Scuba diving. Good morning, fellow travelers.
Good morning, Ace. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Good
I.
morning, Ace.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, David. I don't think I've been on panel with David before.
I'm not sure we have. Chris, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing well.
Nice.
Yes, sirree. Did you see the marathon show yesterday, Chris?
I caught a few minutes of some of your shows. Sometimes live, sometimes late, sometimes on recording. I guess I did catch a little bit of the. Is it Serbius or something that's been around? Not Serbius. That's someone else. Who's that? Who's the new guy? Last couple of weeks. Yes.
Amicus,
Yeah. Thank you. I've caught some of that.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but
It was a large part of it was Let's Beat Up Ace Day. I have a friend in Phoenix. He loves cattle dogs, and he's got two of them, a male and a female. And the male is older and more mellow in life, right? The female is younger, and she has lately taken to aggravating the male cattle dog, like nipping at his ears, whatever, just trying to be the boss, like an old woman, right? Because she's growing into her age. Anyway, the male will put up with it for a while, about half a day or so, and then when it attacks, it's all it's all over. I felt like that yesterday, listening to JG and Atticus browbeat me for like 3 hours, and then I finally had enough. Fuck you, get out of here.
yeah, I actually caught some of that yesterday.
That's why the only thing I could say in the comments after a certain point was just like, hey, okay, am I hearing someone who doesn't care if Ace has a problem with him? Like bitch and moan about the problems he has with Ace, while he also reinforces, make sure we're all clear, he doesn't care what Ace thinks about him.
Isn't that funny?
I'm like, never in all my life did I think I would see two grown men do that.
You ready, Chris?
I'm sure.
Okay, let's rock and roll.
Notes on the creative process and God's pure creativity, creating something out of nothing. It's certainly an interesting thing to think about. I was only reading a little bit of your essay so far, but the thing where you said the guy talks about creating something out of spirit as opposed to out of nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I've only just read snippets of it, so this will be my first official read.
Oh, and according to JG, I only write boohoo letters. So thank you for reading my boohoo letter. Whatever.
Let me pause just for a second here to mention that I have learned a lot from Will Freeman as far as there's a time and a place and picking your battles and when to say things and when to agree and when to disagree, as opposed to just blurting out the first truth that pops into your head. So I did want to make a shout out to Will. I feel like watching him on this show has been valuable for my growth as a human, if humans can grow. Anyway, I want to read your essay, though. That's mainly why I'm here.
And I love it when you interrupt and throw in a few barbs and sweet compliments.
Thanks. God is creative. Man is somewhat creative. But man can only create by reassembling what is already there. Let's explore. It's still Thursday morning. It's June 4th. My gosh, 2026. It was 7:19 in the morning. Been about 40 minutes ago. Wow, that's a pretty good spread in your temperature, Ace. 64 degrees now, 89 later.
Wow.
96 high on Saturday. I was in the creative business for about 40 years, dear one. You want dear one to be singular? It's personal letter?
That's right. I want it to be singular. You know why?
Because you're an ad man?
Because only one person at a time reads this letter.
Oh.
It's not read to a group. It's written. Then only one person will read it at a time. So I'm speaking to them, whoever is reading it. Dear one.
Nice. I'm going to read it as you have it, but it always feels disingenuous. I always want to say Ace was an ad man instead of I was an ad man, but I'm reading it. So I was an ad man. It was my job to create ads for radio, TV, newspapers, and direct mail. So I was supposed to know something about creativity. Here's what I supposedly
learned. Thank you for helping me find the boo-boos.
Hooray. Here's what I supposedly... Oh, your mind was like writing two sentences at once. Like, here's what I was learning and, you put it together. Here's what I supposedly learned about creativity. Number one, I personally cannot create something out of nothing. Number two, I always needed materials to build with. I needed information about markets, competitors, new developments, trends, customer habits, vendor capabilities, customer attrition rates, etc. Number three, and then in order to do a decent job with the creative, I needed time. I have a similar experience with creative processes as you, Ace, and I'm sure lots of creators do. You like do this work and then there's this churn and you never know when it'll go.
Yeah.
Or God reveals it, like who knows. Creative is not instant. I mean, it can be instant if you have all the pieces already there. Creative is not instant. Creative is not instant. That's cool. Certain ideas had to gel, form, kind of create themselves. Sometimes I would think about a client's marketing problem and situation for a month or more before the solution would come to me. Sometimes the right idea would come to me at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, sometimes in the bathtub. Have you heard the story about can I interrupt with a story?
Oh, of course.
It's a good story, I think. It's probably everybody knows it, but there was a famous guy back in the day that worked out how to, they could calculate length, width, and height of squares and cubes, volumes. They knew how to calculate volumes of certain like spheres or cubes, but they didn't know how to do irregular shapes. And he was like, well, I'm tired of working. I'm just going to take a break. I'll just take a bath. And he drops himself down into the bathtub and the water level raises. And he's like, Eureka! It's the example of why, stop. Sometimes you shouldn't actively pursue a problem. You should relax and go do something else. And then,
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's true though, but supposedly that guy came up with how to measure irregular surface volume from that. It's just a story. Sometimes in the bathtub. Many times my ad was tested and it failed. Sometimes my ad was tested and it worked like gangbusters. I was thinking about all this because the other day we were exploring 1 Corinthians 1:28. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is, so that no flesh at all shall be boasting in his sight. Way back in 1980 or so, I remember going to one of the meetings of the concern. Herman
Rocky. It's pronounced Rocky.
Herman Rocky was the speaker. Rocky's talk was on how God did not create the universe out of nothing. Rocky said, God created the universe out of spirit. I was a young man sitting there listening to Brother Rocky. I had never been involved in a discussion of the who, what, when, how, and why of creation. Yeah, I don't hear the topic of why of creation a lot, or why God, or purpose of God in the traditional churches. Hell, I had just barely escaped the Pentecostal charismatic churches, and those guys are famous for being rather shallow. I should have read that sentence before I spoke.
Isn't that something? They're famous for being shallow.
Yeah. And here I was listening to Brother Rocky explore the creativity of the creator of all. God created the universe out of spirit, out of himself. I really get hung up on the idea of the difference between man and a rock, because God made both the rock and the man out of himself. But the Bible goes out of the way to have God doing something special with man and setting man apart from the rest of his creation. But still, like, I was made out of the Spirit of God. This coffee cup was made out of the Spirit of God. But I feel like I'm more something than to God and to myself than this coffee cup. So I struggle with these things.
Yeah.
I did not realize it at the time, but Brother Rocky's message that day was and is the core message of this entire movement expressed by Paul in Romans 11:36. That all is out of him and through him and for him. Man, I appreciate God making coffee though.
Yeah, me too. Here.
I wonder if God drinks coffee. You know he does. Oh yeah. Cheers. In the creative process, you grab things to rearrange them. According to your, welcome back, David. I was hoping I didn't run you away. According to your vision. At least that's the way it works in my experience of creativity. But God, the only one who is said to be creative in the scriptures, oh, that's fun. The creator of one and all.
Yeah, did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, in the scriptures, the word creator and all of its derivatives is only applied to God. Man is never said in the scriptures to be creative.
Do they like use the word build or something? If they're like, if a man builds a house, is that what they say?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, building's assembling stuff that's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. The creator of one and all. But God is not limited to creating something from something. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is. Yeah, that's a cool, if you think deeply about that verse, like God discards the fully formed human so that he may choose the lump of clay and form it into another human, maybe. God discards this year's wheat so that it might compost and grow next year's wheat. So says 1 Corinthians 1:28. What the hell do we know about creativity and the creative process? I cannot create something out of nothing. I need things to create things. I can't even create a thought of my own. Even my beloved Ralph Waldo Emerson confessed he never had an original thought. And our poet, Paul, says, what have you that you did not obtain? 1 Corinthians 4:7. For who is making you to discriminate? Now, what have you which you did not obtain? I don't think I read that verse well. For who is making you to discriminate? Now, what have you which you did not obtain? Now, if you obtained it also, why are you boasting as though not obtaining? Yeah. Where'd you get your brain?
What would you do with the brain if you had one?
If I only had. Now, this passage, 1 Corinthians 4:7, also speaks to that free will business, or rather to our lack of free will. Oh, I'm bristling.
Oh, you're bristling.
Not one of us has an original thought. See, that's just, I mean, conceptually, I can kind of grasp why that has to be true, but I do bristle against it still. God is not done bringing me to the end of myself yet. Is that kenosis? Is that the right word? Well, I learned that word here, I think. Not one of us has an original thought. Not one of us has a will free of influence and causality. We are less than creative. True creativity is the realm of God alone. Man and God can kill. Only God can make alive.
Amen. Oh my God, that is such a revelation. I'm so pleased that you reminded me.
Heard it here. God created the universe not out of nothing, but out of spirit. Yeah, there's a deep thought. Out of himself. You got God making man, monkeys, cats, trees, entire planets, suns, all out of himself. And that all these things are different. If God created everything out of himself, if God created everything out of nothing, ? Spirit. So you're using spirit to mean like not visible, like not physical, not visible?
I don't know.
Okay, that's why there's a question mark. Got it. Okay.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Because like a spirit isn't nothing, you know. But it's a spirit's not physical. A spirit's not visible.
The way the word spirit is used in the scriptures, sometimes the word spirit just means attitude.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes. Like when Paul tells the Galatians, did you get the spirit by the law or by the hearing of faith? And in that verse, when he says, did you get the spirit? I infer he's talking about the spirit of happiness. Did you get thrilled with the law? Oh, hell no. The law depresses everybody because they can't keep it. Did you get the spirit by the law or by the hearing of faith? So it's not that way all the time when the word spirit is used, but sometimes it seems to be a synonym for attitude. Did you get your attitude, your happy attitude by the law? Oh, hell no.
Consciousness might be something really close to that.
Maybe so, yeah.
If God created everything out of nothing, spirit, and he gives us the eyes to see this, faith grows. Faith replaces doubt and confusion. And the expectation for the final outcome brings a smile to us and a delight to us. Nothing can go wrong, for we all are in his creative hands. In my years in the creative business, from my experience, creativity is a process. There are no instant brilliant flashes. Oh no. One idea is stacked on top of another, and we, in the ad business, hoped for success. Thus, in the scriptures, only God is said to be creative and the creator. I have faith that his creative and redemptive efforts will succeed beyond anyone's imagination. His creative and redemptive efforts are so intimately tied together, it's hard to say where one begins and the other ends. After all, God is one. And again, look at the pure creativity in the cross of Christ. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the cross would accomplish all? That the cross would affect all across the universe? Colossians 1:20. Such creativity. That which is not, that he may discard that which is. Listen, in that day, the day of completion, who will want to boast in their flesh? Yeah, I'm taking a second to actually visualize that day. And
Yeah.
there would be so much to be dumbfounded by. I can't imagine just be throngs and throngs and throngs of all of these people and this stuff we've never seen in beings. I can't imagine someone checking the lint in their belly button in that moment. But what about my belly button?
Yeah.
Our flesh is so embarrassing. It wasn't though. I did catch this little piece and I couldn't help but remember that we ran around naked until we ate of the tree, supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we wanted to cover up. Our flesh is so embarrassing. That's why we wear clothes and tons of makeup. Oh wait, this is Ace confessing to wearing makeup. God chooses that which is not.
Say it a little louder. I didn't hear you.
I was just jokingly said, oh my, Ace is confessing to using makeup.
I didn't want to mention the females, but they can find their own way through this essay.
God chooses that which is not. Whew. Can we trust the choosing of God? As if we have a choice about the matter, huh? We must trust God's choosing. For we must do what is binding. We cannot escape reality except in our vain imagination. How lovely to trust the doings of God and to finally see my own incapabilities. God is creative, and the cross of Christ, our Lord, is the greatest of all creative endeavors. God is creative, and I'm just screwing around. Mike, that is a really good answer to JG's gripe, I think.
Yeah.
God is creative, and you say things like that sometimes. You know, it's like, I don't know. God is creative, and I'm just screwing around. My creative efforts impress no one but me, and rarely even me. I missed that second part of the sentence earlier. That's funny. Come in, save me. There. And before you get mad at this, remember, save has lots of meanings. The Christians like to think the word save only has one meaning. As you can be saved from diabetes, you can be saved from all kinds of things. Grace to you. Ace Theo, creative with Legos and kids building blocks, but not much else. P.S. I love it. God is choosing that which is not. What the hell do we know?
You still have time to repent, Ace. Okay. Keep me informed.
It's a fine essay, Ace.
Isn't that a great way to end it? What the hell do we know?
We have time to discuss things, so I guess that's what we do. But like what JG says in one way, from one perspective, from one facet, you know, if reality is a diamond with lots and lots and lots of facets, then if you want to focus on a single facet, JG is right that when Ace complains about JG, then in a way, Ace is complaining about what God's doing, which supposedly, actually it'll really mess with your head. It means that God through Ace is complaining about JG. I'm sorry, God through Ace is complaining about God through JG. It's like, it just really messes with your head. Yeah, the whole absolute versus the relative. But I did not come here to beat you up. But I did want to say that, like, if you want to limit your thinking to a single facet, then JG's right about that one facet. I think that's a good way to put it.
That you still have time to repent, Ace?
You do still have time to repent.
Yeah, that letter that you just read, that's me repenting.
Well, I didn't take it that way, but
yeah, what the hell do I know? I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm changing my mind every second of the day. Oh, look, new Legos. Let me put these together. Oh yeah, building blocks, children's building blocks. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
But you could also say that God still has time to repent.
Cool.
I mean, if God's directing all of our steps, and if some people haven't repented yet, if you know, God's fully sovereign, then the person that's complaining that their neighbor hasn't repented yet, you could say, hey, you're saying God hasn't repented yet. But
You're safe with me. Don't say this over on JG's channel. They'll freak out.
you really consider that essay to be repentive? Must not be the kind of repentive, not Christian repentance, right?
No, it's not Christian repentance, because repentance just means a change of mind. And so that essay is just exploring, what the hell do I know? Maybe I know something, maybe I don't.
Okay.
But God, the real creative one, is choosing that which is not to build with, right? He chooses death to build with. Who would have thought that one of the great building blocks of God is death? God kills and makes alive. God killed Christ and made him alive. God kills us all and makes us alive. That's a building block? Wow. For even as
Well,
an Adam, all die, so in Christ shall all be made to live.
Amen. Deep stuff, Ace.
And yet, I'm saying in this little old letter, this is not deep stuff. This is this is the best I can do with the tools I have. What the hell do I know about creativity? Yeah, when I first heard Rocky talk on that God creates the universe out of spirit, it was a strange sermon to me, because I just come out of the Shallow Christian Boys, right? And they never discuss anything like this. And I was thinking to myself, who has Rocky been talking to, right? He's obviously been talking to some philosophers who are trying to figure out something deep, like the atheist who says, God can't create something out of nothing. What the hell do you know? Evolution. I don't know what the hell they were talking about. It was a strange topic just to hear Rocky go on about this, right? And I couldn't wait to forget about it because I was still shallow. Do you know what I mean by that expression, that I couldn't wait to forget about it? Let me out of here. I want some rock and roll music, This is boring. But here I am 45 years later, I'm going, wow, that was really a cool talk. That God creates something out of nothing, but that nothing just happens to be his own spirit. God creates everything out of spirit. Still with us, David?
Yes, I was trying to get this mute off, honestly. It's funny, Ace. As I started my walk, I've finished it now. But as I was starting it, I was thinking to myself, I was reflecting and thinking, it's amazing that so many of my creative inclinations are a manifestation of the way that my father relates to the world. And there's a way in which I was thinking of a specific application, which is music production. And there's a way in which my father is producing through me.
Yes. We are breathlessly waiting for you to finish the thought.
For the time, the thought was finished. But when
Oh,
I know when I noticed the space, I was like, I guess I'll keep talking. Let me find something to say. Yes, it was a sobering and consoling contemplation. I appreciate the way that I work, and I work as only I could, being a son of my father. And so all the very things I have interest in, creatively, or that is to make something, to build something, to produce something. There's various fields that I'm interested in, but I approach all in the same way. And I was just reflecting as, being an extension of an expression, an extension of God's creativity. Each of us in our own very unique, way of associating with and relating to the world.
Can I ask you a question, David? That because I would like to hear your answer on it. How can think of yourself and how you make music, and now visualize a wind chime outside during a gentle breeze, and it's making music. And both of these creations of God are making music. Do you feel like there's any kind of like the wind chime doesn't learn and grow and become God's family, but I do? What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't really think of wind chimes too often. I usually just enjoy them. There's
That's
only
a
so
good
much
answer.
there's only so much that I want to apply my mind to. And personally, I've just never thought of applying it to a wind chime. To speak off the cuff, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a difference in between me and a wind chime. I might not be able to tell you what that is, but I'm pretty confident there's a difference, and that God established that difference and thus relates to it, me and a wind chime distinctly. Right. I don't think wind chimes are going to be in the resurrection. Am I kind of getting at what you're asking? Yeah, I don't think wind chimes are being resurrected or will be given celestial bodies.
It's a fun thing to think about, though.
how many wind chimes do you have, Chris?
I
Me,
don't have any wind
zero.
chimes.
Years ago in Santa Barbara, they every Sunday they had down by the beach a lot of booths selling handcrafted items.
I don't know what's wrong with the army, but he's limping again, so he has to be carried up and down the stairs to go out.
I'm back. So anyway, there were a bunch of booths every Sunday on the beach, and one of those booths was selling custom-made wind chimes. They weren't custom made for each individual, but they were just unusual wind chimes. And so I bought a wind chime that was in A major seventh, which is a popular jazz chord. And I bought another wind chime that was in A minor. And I put them at both ends of the house. And it was a long house that we had at the time. And it was so cool. At one end of the house, I could hear Pat Metheny music, playing on the wind chime. And then for whatever reason, I walked to the other end of the house and I could hear blues coming from the wind chime. Because it wasn't just a random wind chime. They tuned it. They made each copper pipe specifically to make this note or that note. So it was really cool. I regret not having those wind chimes these days.
Now I'm really thinking about wind chimes. I haven't even really thought about, because I've been into music more lately than I used to be most of my life, and thinking about, wow, so you could choose all of the notes that could be made when you build the wind. The wind chime builder can choose all the notes that could be played, and then the wind plays the notes.
Yeah.
But It doesn't matter what the wind blows, it's not going to play a note that the wind chime can't play.
Right.
But if you get, quote, lucky, the wind chime might, in the same way the monkey's supposed to type Shakespeare, if you get lucky, you could sit in your yard on a certain day and the wind chime could play a whole song for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be very lucky. Lucky, I don't know if the word lucky, but there is no luck. God would be playing that song, perhaps.
The A major seventh was my favorite. Whatever came out of that A major seventh was just delightful to me.
Get you another one, Ace.
Maybe I will.
Do you want a wind chime?
Okay. You want to make one for me?
I don't know much about it, but I might. It might be a fun project to do.
Just make it an A major seventh.
I do make things out of copper sometimes, so I would
Listen
have
to
to
this.
write down A major seventh to even remember that, but
What noise is that?
I don't know. I can't pick pitch. Wait a sec. Wait. Never mind. There's this clip-on thing I can clip onto my guitar, and it'll tell me what note's playing. I was going to hold it up and see if it
Oh,
would
yeah.
identify the note. I don't have much natural musical ability. I just like music, and yeah, it's cool. But I don't know hardly anything about it.
David, can you take us through this essay and interrupt yourself and respond to Chris if he wants to say something?
I'll try my best, Ace. Best I can promise is a long and exasperated dramatic pause.
Drama.
I like you, David. You're funny.
So, like I was saying, notes on the creative process and God's pure creativity, creating something out of nothing. God is creative. Man is somewhat creative, but man can only create by reassembling what is already there. Let's explore. Thursday morning, June 4th, 2026, 7:19 a.m., 64 degrees now, 89 later, 96 high on Saturday. I was in the creative business for about 40 years, dear one. I was an ad man. It was my job to create ads for radio, TV, newspapers, and direct mail. So I was supposed to know something about creativity. Here's what I supposedly learned about creativity. One, I personally can't create something out of nothing. Two, I always needed materials to build with. I needed information about markets, competitors, new developments, trends, customer habits, vendor capabilities, customer attrition rates, etc. Three, and then in order to do a decent job with the creative, I needed time. Creative is not instant. Certain ideas had to gel, form, kind of create themselves. Sometimes I would think about a client's marketing problem and situation for a month or more before the solution would come to me. Sometimes the right idea would come to me at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Sometimes in the bathtub. Many times my ad was tested and it failed. Sometimes my ad was tested and it worked like gangbusters. I was thinking about all this because the other day we were exploring 1 Corinthians 1:28. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is, so that no flesh at all shall be boasting in his sight. Way back in 1980 or so, I remember going to one of the meetings of the concern. Herman Rock was the speaker. Rock's talk was about how God did not create the universe out of nothing. Rock said, God created the universe out of spirit. I was a young man, sitting there listening to Brother Rock. I had never been involved in a discussion of the who, what, when, how, and why of creation. Hell, I had just barely escaped the Pentecostal charismatic churches, and those guys were famous for being rather shallow. And here I was, listening to Brother Rock explore the creativity of the creator of all. God created the universe out of spirit, out of himself. I did not realize it at the time, but Brother Rock's message that day was and is the core message of this entire movement expressed by Paul in Romans 11:36, that all is out of him and through him and for him. In the creative process, you grab things to rearrange them according to your vision. At least that's the way it works in my experience of creativity. But God, the only one who is said to be creative in the scriptures, the creator of one and all, but God is not limited to creating something from something. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is. So says 1 Corinthians 1:28. What the hell do we know about creativity and the creative process? I cannot create something of nothing. I need things to create things. I can't even create a thought of my own. Even my beloved Ralph Waldo Emerson confessed he never had an original thought. And our poet, Paul, says, "What have you that you did not obtain?" 1 Corinthians 4:7. For who is making you to discriminate? Now, what have you which you did not obtain? Now, if you obtained it also, why are you boasting as though not obtaining? Now, this passage, 1 Corinthians 4:7, also speaks to that free will business, or rather, to our lack of free will. Not one of us has an original thought. Not one of us has a will free of influence and causality. We are less than creative. True creativity is the realm of God alone. God created the universe not out of nothing, but out of spirit, out of himself. If God created everything of nothing, spirit, and he gives us the eyes to see this, faith grows. Faith replaces doubt and confusion, and the expectation for the final outcome brings a smile to us and a delight to us. Nothing can go wrong, for we all are in his creative hands. In my years in the creative business, from my experience, creativity is a process. There are no instant brilliant flashes. Oh no. One idea is stacked on top of another, and we, in the ad business, hoped for success. Thus, in the scriptures, only God is said to be creative and the creator. I have faith that his creative and redemptive efforts will succeed beyond anyone's imagination. His creative and redemptive efforts are so intimately tied together. It's hard to say where one begins and the other ends. After all, God is one. And again, look at the pure creativity in the cross of Christ. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the cross would accomplish all? That the cross would affect all across the universe? Colossians 1:20. Such creativity, that which is not, that he may discard that which is. Listen, in that day, the day of completion, who will want to boast in their flesh? Our flesh is so embarrassing. That's why we wear clothes and tons of makeup. God chooses that which is not. Real. Can we trust the choosing of God as if we have a choice about the matter? Huh? We must trust God's choosing, for we must do what is binding. We cannot escape reality except in our vain imagination. How lovely to trust the doings of God and to finally see my own incapabilities. God is creative, and the cross of Christ, our Lord, is the greatest of all creative endeavors. God is creative, and I'm just screwing around. My creative efforts impress no one but me.
and rarely even me. Come in, save me. Grace to you, Ace Theo. Creative with Legos and kids building blocks, but not much else. P.S. I love it. God is choosing that which is not. 8:33 a.m. What the hell do we know?
I really like your reading voice, David.
Appreciate it. I knew this was a special one. I had to dust it off.
I was going to ask you more questions about the wind chime because I was thinking, I've never made a wind chime. Maybe I'll make Ace a wind chime. And I was like, I could just rewind. I don't have to. I was like, I have to ask Ace what the wind chime was again, but because it's on the internet, I could just rewind. But I'm going to ask you again anyway. What was it?
A major seventh.
A major seventh. And then that's what, a collection of like 7 notes or something?
It's a collection of notes that are start out in the A major, and then you drop one note down.
I'm sure I'll be able to educate myself.
Yeah, you can just.
I might do that. I've never made a wind chime. I like wind chimes. I don't own one. Maybe I'll make 2. I have to go mow the yard, Ace, and I haven't talked to you for a while. I'm so glad that I stopped by today.
Mow the yard and sing a song while you're mowing.
I might sing a song while I'm mowing.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good day. Nice to meet
Bye-bye.
you, David. Bye, everybody.
Good too. Take care. And then there were 2 of us.
Yeah. What have you been creating lately? Because you're a writer, or you've been writing some stuff on your blog. What is it? WordPress or Substack? Turn your mic on. Welcome back.
Appreciate it. I can hear you now.
Ah, lovely. I asked, before you left, I asked, what were you working on lately?
Right now, I'm creating a snare sample taxonomy.
A snare sample. What?
Taxonomy.
What is that?
I'm creating my own like internal reference for snare sample classifications and categories.
Hmm.
That's kind of what I meant earlier when I was talking about the way I relate to creation being, or music production, being similar to my father in that when I was young and I'd listen to music with my dad, he would break down the music into stems, right? Separate individual instrument groups, and then would even break that down further to certain performances and articulations of the instruments within the group. And it was so detailed and thorough that for a time, I couldn't even listen to music without doing it. That's all I knew.
Well, that sounds like a lovely experience for your dad to break it down into component parts.
Yeah, it had its give and take, man. Sometimes you just wanted to listen to music, but other times it was so deeply interesting, just to hear, to itemize or to zone in on one particular sound, and then to be able to hear that unmistakably among like just the noise, you know, everything else kind of muted, and then it's like, okay, I can follow this particular thing throughout the entire song.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I'm listening to music with somebody and they'll say, wow, that bass player is great. Or they'll say, that drummer is just holding it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that.
I went to hear Count Basie when he was really old, and what I think was his last concert. And there was only one person in his orchestra that never let his eyes off of Count Basie, and that was the drummer. Everybody else looked at the drummer for the cues. The drummer looked at Count Basie for the cues.
Exactly.
It was a cool experience to see that. That drummer never took his eyes off Count Basie. And the whole thing, nobody ever said, and a 1 and a 2 and a 3. No, they just all knew. They knew from the shoulder movement of the drummer. Let's begin now. And so the whole room filled up with a blast of sound.
I would love to see that. Count Basie, one of his last performances.
Yeah. Tell you 2 other experiences I had at the Count Basie concert. So Count Basie got his start, I guess, in the 1930s, 1940s. I saw him in 1980 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already gone through, the Beatles invasion of the late 60s and 70s, where all these girls would yell and scream in the audience, oh,
Yeah.
And when I was there at the Count Basie concert, these 70, 80-year-old ladies were acting like teenagers. Oh, I remember that song in 1942.
Man.
They acted just like teenage girls, screaming at the band members with joy. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, the guitar player he was the one who was with Count Basie the longest. He had been there maybe from the beginning. He was so old that he would fall asleep during the concert several times, and he would wake up right at the right time to play his part, his
No,
lead
that's
part,
hilarious.
isn't it?
Yeah. That sounds like something I would do.
Uh-huh.
Oh man. I used to I don't know how I did this, mind you. I just think I didn't at the time I didn't know that it was impossible, right? So I'm young and my father's a pastor at the time, and I used to fall asleep during like every single service. I don't know what it
Your
was.
father
Maybe
was
it's
a
just
pastor, you said?
yes. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just his voice. Maybe I'd listen to his voice and it just put me to sleep. Um, you know, and and I would get in trouble though because I'm not supposed to be falling asleep. My dad's the pastor. He's talking while I would stay awake. And I don't know what it was. I just couldn't do it. But I began to remember the sermons. Like I'd be asleep, but I'd still be listening. And I could tell you what the sermon was about in its entirety. I don't know how I did that, but it sounds like just the type of thing of knowing, of being asleep, listening to the music, waking back up and playing it again.
I read the autobiography of L. Hannon Winchester. He was a pretty famous Universalist preacher way back in the early 1800s, maybe 1700s. But when he was a young man, of course, he had to go to church as well. And he had like what we might call ADHD or whatever, you know, he couldn't pay attention, or he was paying attention to everything too much, right? And his father said that he said, when we go to church this Sunday, if you don't pay attention, you're going to get a spanking when you get home. And so his father was watching him at the church service, and he knew that L. Hannon Winchester was not paying attention, right? He was looking all around and so forth. And when they got home, his father said something like, prove to me that you were paying attention. So he said, all right, well, the sermon was about such and such. There's 9 stained glass windows, 87 pews, 3 lamps. The floor is made of hardwood oak. I mean, he just went on with many, many, many details. It was cute. You have to turn your mic on to talk.
You know, that's a great reminder, Ace. Yeah, I was saying during the time, you put the childlike mind to anything, to any task, and it'll find its way.
Yeah. All right, boys and girls, allow me to read the little essay and put in my own thoughts, since we got Chris and David to read it. See if I can add what?
Nothing. I just got my sound back.
Oh, nice. Okay, here we go. Notes on the creative process and God's pure creativity, creating something out of nothing. God is creative and man is somewhat creative, but man can only create by reassembling what already is there. What is already there? Let's explore. Thursday morning, 89 degrees later. I was in the creative business for about 40 years, dear one. I was an ad man. It was my job to create ads for radio, TV, newspapers, and direct mail. So I was supposed to know something about creativity. Here's what I supposedly learned about creativity. Number one, I personally can't create something out of nothing. Number two, I always needed materials to build with. I needed information about markets, competitors, new developments, trends, customer habits, vendor capabilities, customer attrition rates, and more, etc. Number three, and then in order to do a decent job with the creative, I needed time. Creative is not instant. Certain ideas had to gel, form, kind of create themselves. Sometimes I would think about a client's marketing problem and situation for a month or more before the solution would come to me. Sometimes the right idea would come to me at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, sometimes in the bathtub. Many times my ad was tested and it failed. Sometimes my ad was tested and it worked like gangbusters. I was thinking about all this because the other day we were exploring 1 Corinthians 1:28. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is, so that no flesh at all shall be boasting in his sight. Way back in 1980 or so, I remember going to one of the meetings of the concern. Herman Rocky was the speaker. Rocky's talk was on how God did not create the universe out of nothing. Rocky said God created the universe out of spirit. I was a young man sitting there listening to Brother Rocky. I had never been involved in a discussion of the who, what, when, where, and why of creation. Hell, I had just barely escaped the Pentecostal charismatic churches, and those guys are famous for being rather shallow. And here I was listening to Brother Rocky explore the creativity of the creator of all. God created the universe out of spirit, out of himself. I did not realize it at the time, but Brother Rocky's message that day was and is the core message of this entire movement expressed by Paul in Romans 11:36, that all is out of him and through him and for him. In the creative process, you grab things to rearrange them according to your vision. At least that's the way it worked in my experience of creativity. Hang on a second while I bold out Romans 11:36. At least that's the way it worked in my experience of creativity. But God, the only one who is said to be creative in the scriptures, and the creative one and all, but God is not limited to creating something from something. God chooses that which is not, that he may discard that which is. So says 1 Corinthians 1:28. What the hell do we know about creativity and the creative process? I cannot create something out of nothing. I need things to create things. I can't even create a thought on my own. Even my beloved Ralph Waldo Emerson confessed he never had an original thought. And our poet, Paul, says, "What have you that you did not obtain? For who is making you to discriminate? Now, what have you which you did not obtain? Now, if you obtained it, also, why are you boasting as though not obtaining?" Now, this passage, 1 Corinthians 4:7, also speaks to that free will business, or rather, our lack of free will. Not one of us has an original thought. Not one of us has a free will, a will free of influence and causality. We are less than creative. The true creativity True creativity is the realm of God alone. God created the universe out of quote unquote nothing, not out of nothing, not out of nothing, but out of spirit, out of himself. If God created everything out of nothing, spirit, and he gives us the eyes to see this, faith grows. Faith replaces doubt and confusion. And the expectation for the final outcome brings a smile to us and a delight to us. Nothing can go wrong, for we are all in his creative hands. In my years in the creative business, from my experience, creativity is a process. There are no brilliant, instant brilliant flashes. Oh no, one idea is stacked on top of another, and we, in the ad business, hoped for success. Thus, in the scriptures, only God is said to be creative and the creator. I have faith that his creative and redemptive efforts will succeed beyond anyone's imagination. His creative and redemptive efforts are so intimately tied together, it's hard to say where one begins and the other ends. After all, God is one. Again, look at the pure creativity in the cross of Christ. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the cross would accomplish all? That the cross would affect all across the universe? Colossians 1:20. Such creativity, that which is not, that he may discard that which is. Listen, in that day, the day of completion, who will want to boast in their flesh? Our flesh is so embarrassing. That's why we wear clothes and tons of makeup. God chooses that which is not. Whew. Can we trust the choosing of God? And if we have a choice, as if we have a choice about the matter, we must trust God's choosing. For we must do that which is binding. We cannot escape reality except in our vain imagination. How lovely to trust the doings of God and to finally see my own incapabilities. God is creative, and the cross of Christ our Lord is the greatest of all creative endeavors. God is creative, and I'm just screwing around. My creative efforts impress no one but me, and rarely even me. Come in and save me. Grace to you. A Theo, creative with logos and kids building blocks, but not much else. P.S. I love it. God is choosing that which is not. 8:30 a.m. What the hell do we know? What the hell do we know? We must trust God because there's no other way. Our whole experience thus far should be evidence that there's nothing in us to trust. We must trust God. And there's no way that you're going to get out of this. We must trust God. Okay, here's a September 15th, Pat Metheny song, and then we'll close up shop. Grace to you. Thanks for stopping by. Leave a thumbs up and a comment. What's up, somebody? Because it's short. Uh-oh. I hit the wrong button.